welcome to part two of the Law Be With You podcast show. So, yeah, talking about John Boyega here now. More explicitly, this story by Andrea Towers in Entertainment Weekly. And John has talked about being open to coming back as Finn in the Star Wars franchise and working with J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy. Now, this is a weird story because it seems a bit of a U-turn, because John has gone on record to kind of say that he felt that the Finn character was underutilized, especially since The Force Awakens, and he has been very critical about the arc of Finn in the subsequent films, and we're talking obviously The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. He did kind of speak about, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here, but he's kind of basically kind of said here, you knew what to do with these other people, but when it came to Kelly Marie and Tran and John Boyega, and he kind of gives a bit of a cuss. Yeah, you didn't know what to do. You didn't know what to do with them. He goes on to say, they gave nuance to Adam Driver. They gave all the nuance to Daisy Ridley. Let's be honest, Daisy knows this. Adam knows this. Everyone knows this. I'm not exposing anything. So at this time, John was kind of really against how they treated his character of Finn. I think a lot of Star Wars fans, including myself, would agree with that Finn was underutilized. I seem to remember in the Last Jedi film, them going on this fruitless mission to Canto Bight, where the only thing remarkable about that part of the film that was interesting was these kind of fathiers, which were kind of a cross between a goat and a horse. And as a West Indian, it did make me think of curry goat or curried mutton. If you're into your West Indian cuisine, that's the only thing that really, because the rest of it was kind of like, what really happened? I know he had a fight with Captain Phasma, and he did actually deal with Captain Phasma. That was one kind of thing. Was it an interesting fight scene? I don't know. I think it could have been better, if I'm being honest. Yeah, so I think that they didn't really do much with him, and I think the whole issue was that they set it up for Finn as a promotional Jedi in The Force Awakens with all the fanfare and all the advertising. He was the main guy, the central protagonist, and then we end up finding out that it's obviously not him. It's really more about Rey and Kylo Ren, and so Finn ends up being relegated really as a secondary character, and as a comic relief, as sort of a bit of a joke character, not quite on the level of Jar Jar Binks, but still not the main protagonist that he was being set up to be. So I can understand why John didn't like that. Now talking about the fact that he's being quoted as saying he's open to coming back, this is a really interesting sort of U-turn, because obviously he didn't seem to be on board with that. And if he is coming back, that would be amazing. Why would he be coming back is a good question, and I'm going to throw that question out to you as podcast listeners, as YouTube listeners of the show. Why do you think John Boyega would be open to be coming back, especially that he had pejorative comments about how they treated the arc of Finn? Why do you think he'd be coming back? Do you think that they've offered him a lot of money? Do you think that after his comments on Black Lives Matters, that that's affected his career? And a lot of big Hollywood producers and studios have kind of thought, oh, hang on a minute, he's too political. He's speaking out on race in a very open way. Do we want the heat or the backlash that might come with that? Why do you think it would be the case? I think he's a really talented guy. I love how he would speak on important matters that are close to his heart. I feel that he did a good effort with Finn, but I just feel that Finn as a character wasn't well written enough. That they, like he said, which I agree with, there wasn't enough nuance with Finn as a character. What do you think? What do you think? Why is he back? Now, this is the thing. Also, if he is going to come back, do you think it would be, in what sort of guise do you think that Finn would come back? I know there's a lot of fans who would want Finn as a Jedi. In the Rise of Skywalker, they seem to hint that he had Force powers, or or that he was force sensitive. Now, they didn't confirm it in the film, which I think is really poor writing. If you're gonna like sort of kind of say, oh, or this guy's kind of doing things that a Jedi would do. He's having sort of this sort of connection to the Force that only a strong Force user would really have. Why really you have to go out? You have to go all out and just and show it in the film. You don't just kind of think, oh, we'll give you a few clues, and then you have to wait for the book, the novelization of the Rise of Skywalker, and then in the book it will be you'll fully find out that he is Force sensitive. And kind of, by the way, we kind of hinted at that in The Force Awakens as well, but didn't really do anything with it. So yeah, we really need to kind of, if he's going to come back, for me, he needs to come back as a Jedi. He needs to come back fully. Either he's training to be a Jedi, or he's already a Jedi, and he's really. And you need to do something amazing with him. You need to kind of almost kind of bring some restitution and some kind of so you kind of really restore the fans of restore the faith that the fans have had in the franchise, especially us who actually had high hopes that Finn would be an amazing character and have an amazing story and amazing narrative. I think there needs to be a sort of, okay, you know what, we're going to give you the stormtrooper turned Jedi narrative that we all thought would be amazing as a really great idea. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it proper, and we're not going to do it half baked. We're not going to sort of tease you that you might be able to do it and not really show you. We're going to show you full pace. This guy is an amazing Jedi. He's got amazing lightsaber skills. We're going to give you a different color lightsaber. We're going to do something amazing, something novel. We're going to have that nuance with Finn as a character. And the best place to do it probably would be a Disney Plus TV show, just like they did with the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show on Disney Plus, what they're doing right now, what they've been doing with The Mandalorian season 1 and 2. I think that's probably the way to do it. Get him a show on Disney Plus. Wouldn't it be great if you could get Rey and Poe on there as well? How awesome would that be? I think a lot of Star Wars fans will be like, "Yep, let's go. We're on board for that." So I think that's probably the best way to do it. Now, as for John's motivations for coming back, if this is really true, if he's really if he's not kind of just trolling the fans, but he's actually really kind of like being genuine to this, which I think he comes across as a genuine guy. It could be that he needs the money. That's one really obvious thing. Like, you know what? He wants more money. They'll pay him a lot of money potentially for coming back. That's a very pragmatic way of looking at things. But another way of looking at things is that he feels like he has unfinished business with Star Wars. He wasn't happy with what they did with Finn, and he feels that there's some mileage within the Finn character. There's still great story there, and I would go with that one more. That he'll want the money, but ultimately I think he'll feel that there's more you can do with Finn. There's some great story that can be told with the Finn character, and he's on board for it. And if that's the case, I'm really excited. Now we didn't really talk about this that much so far, but the part of where he talks about that he would be looking forward to, he would come back to work with J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy. That's the part of the story that's a little bit like, huh? Really? Obviously, the things that were wrong with the Finn narrative are down to Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams. Now, obviously, Rian Johnson, who did The Last Jedi film, that was the worst of all. So actually, in that respect, he hasn't mentioned Ryan's name. So I think he's kind of been very apparent that he didn't like what Ryan did with Finn in the second film of the sequel trilogy, The Last Jedi. Maybe he's more forgiving towards J.J. Abrams because especially because The Rise of Skywalker seemed to hint that Finn had some Force powers. In terms of Kathleen Kennedy, the only reason I think he would be mentioning wanting to work with Kathleen is because she's the person that could make it happen. If I'm being honest, I think if he's really said this, that probably is the only reason he's said it. Is like, if Kathleen comes across and finds out about what he said, then she'll be like, "Ooh, hang on a minute, Disney Plus, a Finn, TV show. This would be a good idea." And so that's why I think he's probably mentioned that. If I'm being very practical, I think it's for that reason. I don't think he's probably the biggest Kathleen Kennedy fan of all time. I just think he knows she's the woman that can make it happen. She's got the power to make it happen. So, back to you, the fans who are fans of the Lord Be With You podcast show, who are fans of Christian Fandom Geek. What do you want? How would you like to see Finn back on in Star Wars? Whether it's in the cinema, whether it's in the multiplex, or whether it's on Disney Plus live streaming, live action. What do you want for Finn? And also, any stories? Would you have Finn connected to Rey romantically? The sort of story that didn't happen in The Force Awakens, where you had Finn going Rey, and chase Rey and chasing after Rey and calling after Rey every 5 minutes, and would you want him doing that, or would you want them as a really high powered Force couple where they're kind of not only a power couple but they're a Force powered couple? Get it? Yeah, I think you get it. Bit of a Force push joke there. So yeah, would you have them romantically together as a couple, as really powerful, just on another level in that respect? How would you have them? How would you have Finn interacting with the new sort of characters in the franchise? Would you have him connect to the legacy characters as well? And so yeah, there's a lot they could do with Finn. And so just kind of thinking about these things, I hope that you've enjoyed this little John Boyega Finn inspired episode of the Lord Be With You podcast show. Got some great episodes coming up soon as well. Got episodes with Luke Shaw on the Wizards of Middle Earth coming up very soon. Got an episode with, on Superman as well coming up really, really soon. So keep listening to the show. Remember, if you haven't done it yet, get onto Christian Fandom Geek and sub the show. And look out for the great episodes that we've got coming up very soon on the Lord Be With You podcast show. So as I was, finishing off this John Boyega Finn-inspired version of the Lord Be With You podcast show on Christian Fandom Geek, I've come across this interesting conversation on Twitter with Star Wars Infinite. And Star Wars Infinite is a really nice guy. I've kind of interacted with him on Twitter and also planning to collaborate with him in the future, either via podcast or YouTube, but it will be on Christian Fandom Geek and it will be on the podcast show as well in some guise. So yeah, really, and actually when I ported the show over from the anchor from the podcast over to YouTube as Christian Fandom Geek, he was the first one to really kind of play. I think he was the first one to like sub the show, play the video, leave a comment, and really was very positive and very engaging about what I wanted to do with this show. So actually, I'll always remember him for that as being really positive, really encouraging. And I tell you what, I gotta say to you, thank you, brother, and fair play for that, because that was really encouraging as well. It's nice to kind of get that encouragement, and especially if you're quite a new enterprise, you're a new, the new kid in town type of thing in terms of talking about these great franchises and porting it over to YouTube as Christian Fandom Geek. And he's talking here with another guy who's into Star Wars and has a Star Wars channel. I think it's Okiro. I think I'm going to pronounce it as Okiro. Apologies for the first Okiro if I'm mispronouncing the name. Apologies, but I'm going to go with that one there, and you can correct me afterwards if that's the case. So I'm kind of paraphrase a little bit of their conversation, but because I think it's really interesting, and I'm glad I've come across this conversation as I'm kind of completing the Finn episodes, which I think will be a part 1 and a part 2, to be fair. So Akira's basically said, "I don't care what anyone says. This is what I want from the future of Star Wars." And he's put a picture of Finn with a green lightsaber and Rey with a yellow lightsaber, but it's a double-ended lightsaber on that one there. Okay, So he Akira's essentially he's been talking a lot. I've seen a lot of his conversations on Twitter about Finn and Rey, and I think his opinion, from what I've understood, is he's really pushing or really talking up the narrative of Finn being a fully fledged Jedi, Rey and Finn almost been like a power couple, which I kind of spoke about earlier in the episode on in this Finn special. So he's really going with that sort of the idea of maybe them as a power couple. I'm not saying like Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, although we know what's happened with those guys, but a more of a kind of in the Force sort of powered couple. Now, it's an interesting idea because obviously, well, like I've already mentioned, it kind of was alluded to a little bit in The Force Awakens, but it was never realized, and they went a different direction. They went with obviously, Rey and Kylo Ren. Now, Star Wars Infinite in this conversation has replied to Okiro and basically said, to be honest, I think most don't want to see Rey and Finn for a while. I'd rather they focus on the Obi-Wan show, Mando season 3, and possibly an Old Republic trilogy. So obviously, they do Disney Plus, and obviously Disney Lucasfilm are now doing the Obi-Wan TV show, which is exciting, having Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan Kenobi and Hayden Christensen as their famous and awesome Anakin Skywalker. And also, we've obviously got the Mandalorian season 3, which will be coming out very soon as well. And like he's also mentioned an Old Republic trilogy. That's another era in Star Wars, set, I think, maybe at least 1,000 years or so before the sort of common era that you get with the movie franchise. So yeah, I think it is about that. I'll have to actually look into the time in terms of that on that one. But yeah, in terms of that, that's the reply that Star Wars Infinite has said. Now, this is interesting because I do really want to see John Boyega back in the Star Wars franchise. I do want to see Finn back. I would love to see Rey back as well, by the way, because sometimes I go on about Rey like she's not really written that well and she's overpowered and a bit of a Mary Sue sort of trope of a character sort of thing. But actually, I still liked Rey, and I would love to see Rey done properly as well. But I think, like, for me, I am a big Finn fan. In terms of, I'm a John Boyega fan, and in terms of, I would love to see Finn done properly. And I think that's the motivation for me. If they'd done Finn really well, they've written him in with that nuance, as John Boyega said, in the sequel trilogy films. So if we saw a really awesome story of the Stormtrooper turned Jedi in The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, and we saw Finn as a really well-written character, exciting, action-packed, great lightsaber skills, and you see him as a sort of central protagonist, even if it was like him and Rey together as sort of dual central protagonists, that I would have been really happy, really satisfied as a Star Wars fan. And I think a lot of other Star Wars fans within fandom would have really been hyped up and excited about that as well. However, we didn't get that story at all. We got Finn as a comic side character, and we've already spoken about that. Now, my motivation really for seeing Finn back now would be that they do things right, restoration essentially, a retcon where they show a proper story that we all wanted of the Stormtrooper turned Jedi. And that's my motivation for that. Now, in terms of Star Wars Infinite, I understand why he said that. I understand why he's basically said, look, no, let's just move on from that, because he's essentially alluding to the fact that the Star Wars fan base, are not really ready for that story yet, because they're still angry. Not all the fan base, I'm gonna have to be honest, not all of the fan base, but a lot of the fan base are still not happy about, especially The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. I think The Force Awakens is, most Star Wars fans are, I wouldn't say exceedingly happy about it, but I think most Star Wars fans would say, yes, it's a decent film, it's a decent opening film. They played it safe, but that's okay. But then, obviously, The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, just films that had a lot of heat on them, and yeah. So, I'll go on there. Akira's basically then gone on to say, well, it's a big galaxy, and just paraphrasing, you can do that. You can. There is room for this sort of to bring, Finn back and even have combined Finn and Rey in an awesome story, which I kind of agree with. But then Star Wars Infinite goes on to say, look, they've missed the mark with 3 films. They've kind of ruined the arc of Luke, possibly Vader and the Emperor, and they need time off before going back to it again. But maybe in the future, fans will kind of warm up to the sequel trilogy again, in the same way that fans have kind of forgiven George Lucas for some of the sins of the prequels. I think nowadays, after this new sequel trilogy, a lot of fans are more forgiving of the prequels that George Lucas did. And it's funny that at the time a lot of fans were against the prequels, and even myself, I don't think they're great films. Revenge of the Sith is the best of them, but they're not amazing films. But I think a lot of fans are more forgiving of them because of what Kathleen Kennedy's done with the most recent sequel trilogy. Obviously, The Rise of Skywalker being the final film of that sequel Skywalker trilogy. So, yeah, interesting conversation with both gentlemen who are really passionate Star Wars fans who have really powerful YouTube channels. So if you're interested in some, looking at other YouTube channels that are promoting Star Wars, I'd recommend both channels. They're both young men who are really passionate about the franchise, have a lot of great ideas. Star Wars Infinite has a really interesting idea going at the moment about sort of the canon that's coming from the animated TV shows from the Clone Wars and whatnot. So really, yeah, they both have great content. So what do you think as fans or as potential fans of Star Wars? What side of the fence are you on? Are you like Star Wars Infinite? Are you kind of like, no, leave it alone for a bit? Look at other new projects. Focus on Mandalorian season 3. Focus on the Old Republic. Focus on the Obi-Wan TV show. Do some new TV shows on Disney Plus. Leave Finn, leave Rey, leave the sequel trilogy stuff for a while. Let the fans kind of, calm down about that and then come back to it in the future. Or are you like Okiro? Are you like the story wasn't done right before? Let's see this story done right now. So I think both arguments are valid. If I'm being honest, I think for me, like I say, I think I would agree with Star Wars Infinite. However, I will say this: I do want to see a restoration for Finn and for John Boyega. I do want to sort of see. I want to see that retcon. I want to see that story done right. And so, in that sense, that would be my motivation for really wanting to get a Finn story in the near future, rather than way down the line sort of thing. So, yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed this sort of this Finn special, which will be a part 1 and part 2. And I hope that we get more of Rey, because honestly, that's the question, right? Do we need more of that Rey, or should it just be kind of like at that in the new story? Should Finn be a bit more sophisticated, a bit more kind of like, okay, I'm not going to run around just shouting this girl's name all the time. This young woman, I've got to play it a bit more cool, be a bit more sophisticated, and if you do that, maybe she'll like you a bit more. Because do women really want a guy go shouting their name every 5 seconds, every 5 minutes? Is it come across as a little bit over the top? It may be. I think in that regard, you got to play it cool, brother. You got to just relax a little bit and just let the girl kind of get to know you and let her like you, rather than shouting her name every 5 minutes. Anyway. Okay, there we go. So yeah, John Boyega's a funny guy. So we'll back with you very, very soon on the Law Be With You podcast show on Christian Van Nimgib. Hooray! See you soon.